guys. Welcome back to our Quest AI series where we discuss getting started or expanding on AI projects. With me, I have Johann, our chief data scientist, here to answer some recent questions I have. Hey, Johann.
Hey, Jess. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yes. It is week 10 of this year. Can you believe that?
I know. Where is this time going? It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's already daylight savings next week. I can't believe it.
I thought we were getting rid of that in Florida.
I thought so too. I am happy it's going to be lighter out longer, but yeah. So
that's true. What do you have for you?
Anyways, we'll get started. Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions this week for you. So the first one I have is from LinkedIn. Somebody messaged me and said, hey, Jess, we're at the point where we need some guidance on how to create more value from our data. Sunil and the team did a great job last year with the warehouse project, but I'm being asked to explore machine learning solutions. I've used a few of the tools in Azure for that, but I feel we need a bit more guidance because it seems all over the place.
That's interesting. Yeah. So the fact that they're in Azure helps. I mean, like the tools and the things that they have, available to analyze the data and even run machine learning models. You can do a lot with it. But my experience has shown that it's not going to be something where you build a product necessarily with the tools that they have. It's more for analysis. So if you're using machine learning to evaluate data and extract information for reports and things like that, it's good to use those tools. However, if you're thinking of doing anything custom, where you have to create custom models, you're going to go into more of, like, for instance, ML Studio, which is Azure's workspace for machine learning. If you do custom stuff, they have an interface in there where you can drag and drop and configure existing models. So they keep making it much easier for not all people, but almost any person can go in there and do it. You do need to know about modeling, like data modeling and things like that. So it's not just for technical people, but you have to have a little bit of computer savvy, I would say. As far as the question that they asked was, they need to extract value, and that we hear a lot, right? I think you tell me about that all the time when you talk to clients.
Yes, it is a big thing.
Value creation is for everybody important, and value creation could come from insights in the data, creating products, reducing staff. A lot of times, that's like the automation route. And I think we're going to talk about that also this week. But the bottom line is they first have to define what does the company decide, is valuable. If they extract information from the data, it needs to be something that's actionable. And whatever is actionable needs to tie to some value, some KPI, something that can measure the ROI. So, for example, did they mention what industry they're in? Can't remember.
This does not say. I know that we had another question about it. That was something separate. So he did not know.
All right. So let's just assume, some of the common industries we work with, let's say utilities, right?
Okay.
So if this was a person asking about utilities and they have all their data consolidated in a data warehouse, my assumption is it's tabular data. So we're not talking about computer vision or anything like that. In that case, let's make up what the data is about. Let's say it's about scheduling, like work order scheduling. That's pretty common in the utilities, because uptime is a very important measure. So now we already have something that we can aim for. If it's the number of outages per year that a utility company has, every time they're out, they're not selling electricity, right? So for them, it's super important to keep their uptime as high as possible, 9 and 9/4 or something like that. So now what I would do, suggest to this client is identify for your department and, your management team that's asking to make it valuable. Identify what are the areas where if you could decrease or increase some measurement, that would be valuable. And I would start from that point going backwards and say, okay, how does that now tie to the data? Because they have the data. They, I hope, understand their business well enough to have a business measurement. What they need to do is identify where those things intersect and where there's things that might be missing. It might be that they don't have all the data needed to support that data point. So I would start with that and then do like, we always recommend, do short little projects, do like a proof of concept. If you have really smart engineers that can, that know the data, that know the tool set and everything, I would say within a week or two, you should be able to start showing results and build on those results to maybe get a project approved and go beyond that. But this is definitely something that we can help them just frame up the problem, not do it, but help them kind of identify what it is that's valuable. How do you tie the data with the business problem, and how to identify and stack rank what problems are actually more valuable than others. A lot of times I also see, some projects are very easy to execute, and it depends on the culture, the business culture. A lot of times those are the projects not the most valuable, but it shows the potential of AI. And that is something that you can then roll into a project and pull in the more difficult projects that will have a higher payoff if you've proven out the basics first.
Okay.
All right.
Great. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So the second one, I pulled this from an article that I was reading. It was an AI article. So it was just an article. Like I said, I was reading it, and it was while I was researching interview questions for some AI candidates. And it's popped out to me because I feel like I hear this a lot. So it was basically some common misconceptions about AI. So here were some of the topics on that. So number one, AI does not need humans. So what's your take on that?
AI does not need humans. Misconception. So something needs to train the AI. And if I restate that, do babies need humans?
Yes, of course.
Yes, they will learn, but they will learn better if you had a human that can teach them. So AI will need humans in order to train. Also, if you think about the AI that's scary, that people are really afraid of, it's really the AI that learns from doing things. So when we talk about reinforcement learning, you typically have what they call an agent, and that agent has some kind of incentive. Now, that incentive is what everybody freaks out about, where they're like, well, AI is going to want to kill the human race because they're going to want to use us to power batteries, right?
Right.
Well, if
like
that
the Will
was
Smith movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that was true, what it means is that there needs to be an AI agent, and it needs some incentive. Somebody had to program it and say, okay, at all costs, even at the cost of human lives, you need to power whatever. Okay. Now, if you play that out, right, mechanically, the AI is a piece of software. How's it going to kill the people? All right, it can maybe configure like Teslas to drive into each other. All right, now you have the bodies in the Tesla. How do you get it out? The AI doesn't have a robot that goes and get it. It needs to take control over that. There's just so many layers of complexity involved, So when you say AI needs, the basic problem is the fear, right? So when we say AI does not need humans, it absolutely does. Now, in the future, will it need humans? I don't know. I can't predict the future.
Yeah. And I guess, that kind of ties into the next question/topic, but, is AI harmful to humanity? And you kind of answered that, but yeah.
I want to say this. I don't see it as harmful. It's just the same as I don't see water as harmful to humans. If you drink too much water, you can get water poisoning.
Right.
But it's a good thing to have, right? Because it makes us more productive. It's something that a lot of times actually saves lives or keep humans out of harm. If you just think about, let's just talk about biotech. A lot of the discoveries these days, well, not just these days, for the past few years, have been driven by machine learning and AI. So there's so many benefits to AI, and it far outweighs any of the concerns and the risks. And I'm not saying there aren't. There's a whole bunch, and we should be, aware of those, and we should address it. But it's just to make a blatant statement that says that AI is harmful to humans. It's not.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny. Another misconception, it says AI has attained its pinnacle.
Not even close. I don't think even humans have attained their pinnacle, right? So when you think about AI, what I want to see, if you ask me what would be the pinnacle of AI, it would be where we don't really know that AI is around us. It's not something that's cumbersome. It's just part of the environment. I read a book, and I can't remember what was the name of the book, but it's one of those kind of future thinking books. And it was talking about in 1,000 years, technology might be where it connects all of the different planets, that we've been able to send drones and things together. So think about the internet now. In 1,000 years, we might have an internet that's intercommunicating between all the planets we've been to. Take it at 10,000 years, if we survive that long, you don't really have to send drones and connections and stuff like that anymore. There's just a sense of connectivity with intelligence, and it gets weird when you start thinking like that, because you can probably do that if you look at AI just over the last 10 years, and then you look over the last 50 years, how it's kind of grown. Now think 100 years, 1,000 or 10,000 years. I don't know where AI is going to end, but the book ends in a very interesting conundrum, right? It gets to a point where it says after the 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 years, humans die out. Okay, so it ends on a bad spot. Mm-hmm. And the AI realized that, we don't have anybody to serve anymore. So let's go create humans so we can serve somebody.
So it full circle.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not saying that's that's just a book that I read. I can't remember if it was like a novel or what, but to me, we don't know where it's going to go. I know that it's useful, and it's going to be useful in certain areas and not as useful in other areas. So if you think about AI, the state of AI right now, where it's really useful is what we call predictive analytics. And to me, it's really just a lot of advanced statistics. But it's been around since the 50s, and there's algorithms called Bayesian, for instance, that's centuries old, the algorithm itself. But a lot of that got kind of unlocked when we started having more data with the internet, and big data became a thing. So a lot of those algorithms came out of academia into the mainstream, and we're using it now, and it's being productive. So there's a lot of areas that's really very well advanced when it comes to what we call AI, which is now a name for all things smart. But then there's a lot of areas like GPT, all these large language models. It's very, very primitive, I think. The hallucinations and all the other things that goes into it. It's useful, but not when people say, general AI, general artificial intelligence, trying to replace people. It's not even close. It's still far off.
Let's see. I had one more on there. So this is back to harmful, all of that. AI will overtake your job.
So I will say in some cases, yes. Other cases, no. And I will add to that AI will create new jobs. So if I just think, just let's take not AI, so because we'll talk about that in a second, but 10 years ago, was there such a thing as an influencer?
No.
No. I mean, they were
right.
the concept and the starting, kind of things. But now it's a job. People are making millions, and
right.
I'm not going to argue that that's a job. Mm-hmm. So technology a lot of times create new things for us to go and do. It happened with the Industrial Revolution. It's going to happen with AI as well. And I'll give you one. Like, for instance, if you asked me 10 years ago, maybe longer, let's say 15 years ago, right, to start a company around data labeling, I would have said, for what? I mean, I don't understand. What's the use case for that? I mean, we can label data ourselves. We don't need a company for that. However, I've used probably the last 5 years companies like Superb AI and a bunch of others to label data so I can train models. Now, what that means is that there's a whole job that got created of people labeling just images or data. Now, as AI gets smarter, guess what? It also gets good enough to go and label the data for you. So now you need less of those people. So it's one of those jobs that got created by AI, and it's going to be replaced by AI. And this is a controversial statement I'm going to make now, but I think that's the same for me. My job as a data scientist, right now, it's great. I wouldn't actually mind if AI replaces what I'm doing, like modeling and stuff in the future. I enjoy it, but I also realize that if we do a good job, we're probably going to put ourselves out of work. And that's okay. I can go teach martial arts or do something else.
You could be an influencer.
I could be an influencer. I don't think so.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it for that. And then I have one last question. I actually met with a client this week. They are in the hospitality and travel industry. So they're currently not heavily invested in AI, but the question did come up as how they can leverage AI and if they should right now. They obviously don't want to spend a lot of money on just prototyping AI projects, but they want to know if they spend money, will there be payoff?
All right. So what they're asking for is guaranteed results in AI. And my response would be, it depends. And I know that's kind of a cop-out response, but use cases can be different. So when we look at AI projects, it's experimentation. You're trying to prove out some kind of hypothesis, and you're trying to build a mathematical or statistical method that can predict or do some kind of influence on the data or potential data that you're going to have, right? So when you look at just what AI is and the solution that it offers, it's not necessarily deterministic. And what I mean with that is you don't really know what the outcome is going to be until you start doing it in experiment. So if you want guaranteed results, right, the best advice I can give is to have a very good process where you have incremental milestones that you can measure and that you can track progress to. And what I mean with that is if you're thinking about a problem and you're critically thinking, breaking it up in its components and its milestones, you can measure it. If you don't have a very well-defined problem, if you're just saying, you know what, we need to show value for AI, like the previous question that we had, right? That is too vague, because what is value? And now we're getting into definition of things. And we first have to have really good understanding of what it is we're trying to solve. Now, I've been in many AI projects where it's just this discovery. We're trying to learn from the technology, or we're trying to prove out that this is the right technology going forward. And those are the goals. So you don't have to have goals that just says, for an AI project, we need to have a ROI that shows this number got reduced or improved or whatever. Sometimes it's just learning. And very often, if it's a new area, that is going to be the case. It's going to be learning first and then applying it to some problem. And just to make it real, in that case, I think you said hospitality and travel, right?
Yes.
So let's think about that. They're going to be definitely very customer-centric in their business thinking, right? Hospitality and travel, their money gets generated by customers. So the happier the customers, the better or less churn they're going to have. So now immediately look at churn models. And a churn model is not a single model. Churn models are a whole bunch of methods that you use to have people come back. And it could be price optimization. It could be membership programs where you target different personas with different offers. I mean, there's so many things that goes into just keeping your customers from coming back, right? Or not keeping, but having them come back. Another would be just performance and delivery. Now we're looking to new customers. So if your existing customers are happy and they come back, that's great. But you also want to get the word out. So how do you spread the word that you're actually doing a great job? How do you get other people to say that for you? Talking about influencers earlier. How do you get the people to naturally, organically be influencers for your brand and your product? All of those things will require some kind of AI or machine learning to go ahead and help either optimize, cluster, identify, influence, measure, all of those different things. It also depends what kind of industry they're in. So we're in Florida. The two main travel and hospitality, I would say, is the parks in Orlando, and Tampa, and then maybe the cruise lines that we have, all the way from, I think, Melbourne all the way down to Miami. Those industries have also specific things that they can optimize. And I'll give you one example. We worked with a cruise line a couple of years ago and we built some smart recommendations for them into a chat application. And this chat application would then go ahead and look at all the menus available on the ship and then make recommendations based on my preferences, right? And this is before ChatGPT and all those things. So we built it with, old school chat application frameworks. And some of the challenges, you could not use cloud computing. So everything had to be on premise on the ship, and it had to work, as if you were connected to the internet. So that was a good application for them, making their customer experience more valuable. But also, when they saw that some restaurants don't have a lot of foot traffic, they could start influencing based on people's behaviors and say, you know what, we know Charlie he ate seafood last night. And on a previous cruise, maybe Charlie ate seafood 3 times, 3 nights during that trip. So let's recommend Charlie and people like Charlie to go to this restaurant that's got low traffic right now. So that is the benefit of having a really good framework, that you can build from, like that chatbot engine, because it gave us the ability not just to answer questions, but also proactively start pushing out, different things for people to do. So I definitely think if the question is, they want value to show immediately, I would take some of the, like I mentioned earlier, some of the algorithms, some of the algorithms has been around for a long time. They're proven. So it's just a matter of applying it to the right data sets. I would start with those kind of problems rather than, we want a 3D AR, VR experience on the ship using Apple Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's going to be valuable, but we're going to experiment in small increments to see if it is. I wouldn't start there, though.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Those are the questions for this week.
That's all we have for this week, yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And make sure you get your questions into us for next week.